Unless you live under a rock or some random hillbilly outpost in the middle of nowhere, you might have noticed that America has a bit of a traffic problem. And look, America was founded on personal liberty and freedom. That freedom includes personal autonomy and the individual liberties to move to where you want to move to, however you see fit. Affordable, accessible public transport? No, thank you. I'd rather sit in gridlock traffic in my Ford F-250. It's my God-given right. And I think it just aligns a little bit better with our country's core value systems. And hey, listen, those hours aren't wasted. You can listen to Joe Rogan blab on about ice baths or bears or whatever he's talking about this week. But what if there was another way to navigate the ever-increasing urban jungle where more and more people are living? What if I told you there was one solution that could actually make your commute better and improve the lives of everyone else around you too? I know, that's a bit of a bridge too far for Americans to actually think about the collective benefit, but hear me out, okay? Motorcycling already offers a multitude of benefits to both the rider and society. It provides thrill and excitement. It even teaches you personal responsibility and, in my opinion, is an antidote to the digital ennui we are all currently feeling. But I also think motorcycles could alleviate large-scale transportation issues we face in this country. Beyond shaving time off of your commute, more motorcycles on the road means fewer cars on the road, which means less traffic congestion, less wear and tear on our roads, and more fuel efficiency too. Never thought you'd make those bleeding heart liberals happy with your motorcycle, did ya? Well, a Honda Grom gets upwards of 100 miles to the gallon. Tell that to your Prius. So let's talk about how motorcycling could be the solution to traffic problems in America. Being stuck in traffic sucks. Nobody wants to be stuck in traffic. The average American spends nearly 28 minutes commuting one way to their job every day, and that's just one way. That means that in an average day, the American is losing 1 hour a day to transportation. But many metropolitan areas have way worse transit times than that. Think of places like LA or Atlanta, or even Dallas, Fort Worth. Sometimes these poor four-wheeled commuters are losing an hour one way just to get to work. And the problem only gets worse as living in the cities are more and more expensive and more and more people are moving away from the cities, increasing their commute time. And I'm a big advocate that time is the most valuable commodity that you have. Better than money, it's better than health, it's better than wealth. It is truly the number one commodity. It's one of the few things you can never get any more of, and you have no idea how much more of it you have left. Not only do long commutes mean less time for yourself, but it's less time for your family, less time you can invest in yourself, less time that you can do productive things for society or anything else you want to do. It is a large-scale economic burden. And when you're driving a car, you have to pilot it. You can't just sit there and let it drive you to your destination. And I'm not even going to get into self-driving cars. That's just techno bros ways of trying to fix the world's problems with solutions that are absolutely not correct. Basically, just build more trains. Trains are definitely the solution, but we're talking motorcycling today. Now, big cars, trucks, and SUVs also create incredible wear and tear on our infrastructure, particularly big crossovers and SUVs that are getting heavier and crazier every single year. Roads that are in poor conditions increase commute times, lead to more accidents, and just make it harder to get your destination. They create more costs for all commuters and taxpayers. And when all these roads are being repaired, they create more congestion and more time wasted, and the whole cycle continues. And let's not even talk about the fact that cars are getting crazy expensive nowadays, with the average price of a commuter vehicle new in the United States hovering above $40,000. So you have maintenance costs, road costs, toll costs a lot of times because they privatize highways that you need to take in order to get to where you're trying to go, unless you want to spend even more time getting there. And this just creates a crazy feedback loop. So I did joke earlier about bleeding heart liberals and environmentalists, but let's talk a little bit more about emissions as well, because cars are one of the worst offenders. Cars, particularly when they're stuck in gridlocked stop and go traffic, create a ton of emissions and are generally one of the most inefficient ways of moving people where they need to go. Any internal combustion engine is going to create emissions, but one that's just sitting there idling when it could be carrying 4 passengers and it's just carrying 1 person is really a net loss to society. And of course, pound for pound, motorcycles produce fewer emissions than cars. And as I said, it's kind of ridiculous that in terms of personal transportation, we're taking vehicles that can take up to 8 people and you're just sitting there by yourself on your daily commute. Private car ownership and using a car to commute to and from work is objectively kind of a stupid way of allocating resources and organizing our transportation. There's a reason that America is pretty much the only place that does this. Everyone else has figured out better ways to do this. So let's talk about how motorcycles could help alleviate this in our existing system. In the most basic sense, motorcycles simply take up less space. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that diagram of transit and traffic where on the one end there's all these cars and it shows how gridlocked and congested it is, and then it shows how if you just put like 2 buses in that same space, you would alleviate all of the traffic. Motorcycling is a very similar thing. Imagine all the less space you could take up if more people were riding bikes. If even 10% of commuters used motorcycles instead of cars, we would dramatically reduce our traffic. The small footprint of motorcycles would also create less wear and tear on roads. Perhaps we could even create some sort of government incentive to ride 2-wheeled vehicles because we're actually reducing the cost that's going to be bared by society. Perhaps we could create some sort of government incentive where people get paid to ride motorcycles because we're actually contributing less to emissions and wear and tear, and we're actually not causing so many costs for all other taxpayers. It's a big reason I advocate for lower tolls for motorcycles, because we simply do not put the same wear and tear on the tollway. Whether or not you wheelie on the toll booth is up to you, but I'm just saying it's a pretty good strategy. And that's not even to mention lane filtering, which is a tried and proven and scientifically and data-backed system that helps alleviate traffic congestion in many major metro areas. Even though Americans seem to think that motorcycles are cheating by getting ahead in the line, we're actually improving traffic flow for everybody. And since we're risking life and limb and we're probably a little uncomfortable riding, you can certainly let us get into the front of the line. Right, Karen? Most European countries permit filtering. In places like Australia, it's legal as well. In lots of Southeast Asian places, it's not even a question. It's like, of course, the bikes can go up to the front of the lane because that's the most efficient way to get things done. In Brazil, there's actually designated lanes now that are bike-only traffic on certain highways. That's pretty interesting. California was the first state to legalize lane filtering, but there's been many other states now that permit both filtering and splitting. Utah, Minnesota, and Colorado have all legalized lane filtering or splitting to some degree. However, some states, like my great state of Texas, has decided to outlaw lane filtering or splitting outright, which is objectively kind of a stupid thing to do. Triumph calls this color Cosmic Yellow on the Street Triple 765 RS, and I'd like to think it's cosmic because when you find out that you've won this motorcycle on Yamanoo.co, you're going to ascend to the heavens and be in a heaven-like cosmic state of existence as this thing wheels itself into your driveway because you won it on Yamanoo.co. Become a member on the website. Get your chances locked and loaded. You'll join our Discord, get access to the newsletter. But if that doesn't sound appealing, pick up a hat, a t-shirt, a hoodie. We sell all kinds of great stuff on the website. Every dollar you spend will not only support the show, but will also get you entered to win, subject to an amazing multiplier. Get entered to win this bike. Don't sleep on it. Motorcycles also take up dramatically less space when parked. If you think about all the area we use in downtown and suburban areas to literally just park cars that spend 90% of their time not doing anything, it's actually kind of crazy. Think about how much land we could get back. We could create mixed-use developments. We could create more housing. We could do anything with all the land that's being taken up by parking lots. Many cities have dedicated motorcycle parking that's very close to buildings and in cordoned-off areas to try to incentivize people to use bikes to commute. Most famously, the LAX airport actually has motorcycle parking right up at the front of the gate, so you can ride your bike in to go fly and jump out and get there immediately. And look, whether you like it or not, more and more people are living in urban areas, and the vast majority of productivity and GDP are coming from cities. So the more people we can get to cities, spending, doing productive things, increasing productivity, working, living, the better it's going to be. Now, in terms of cost, as I mentioned, new commuter vehicles are pushing upwards of $40,000, $45,000 brand new. You can pick up a fantastic, well-equipped, sensible commuter motorcycle for like $8,000. Brand spanking new, you'd maybe spend 10 grand. And everything's going to be cheaper too. Again, For many commuter motorcycles, getting 50 miles to the gallon is actually very easy and achievable. Hell, you can even get 40 plus miles to the gallon on a frickin' superbike. So if you were to hypermile a Versys 650, you could easily get upwards of 70. And if your commute doesn't necessitate you getting on big highways, you could use something like a Grom and get upwards of 100 miles to the gallon. Those things basically cost nothing to run. So if you just think of your transportation costs instead of owning the greatest and latest fancy vehicle, you could get around for super cheap. That's not even considering scooters, which are kinda goated when it comes to cheap ways to get around. Look, motorcycles may not be entirely green, but they do produce way less carbon dioxide per vehicle mile traveled than automobiles. They're way more fuel efficient and they require way less materials to actually manufacture. Their cost to repair and maintain is way less as well too. You make way less rubber to produce a motorcycle and it just costs way less and produces way fewer emissions to have the life cycle of the vehicle. And in places with lane filtering or splitting, they're not just sitting there idling and producing emissions into the environment. They're more efficiently getting through time and space. Now, in terms of mental health, everybody who rides knows that riding a motorcycle is a fantastic way to de-stress and to actually increase your awareness. It allows for a more focused, individualized experience and a wonderful state of mind. If you work in a super high stress environment at work, the last thing you want to do is sit in your cage in gridlock stop and go traffic. It is infuriating. Imagine if you could jump on a fun vehicle that can cut through traffic and seamlessly get you to where you're trying to go. Reducing wear and tear on infrastructure and reducing our emissions and our costs is great, but don't we also want people to be more happy? And they certainly will with motorcycling. Now, look, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are certainly limitations to why more people don't ride motorcycles, particularly here in the United States. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Motorcycles are inherently more dangerous than cars, but I think that one of the reasons they're more dangerous is that people aren't used to motorcycles riding around them in cars, and they tend to be a little bit more distracted as well. If we had more people being trained on motorcycles and more people riding them, perhaps we'd have more awareness around these systems as well. And of course, weather plays a very big impact on this as well. There's not many places like Texas or California, Arizona or Florida in that people are able to ride year round. But the states I just listed off probably together have a population of more than 100 million people. So if I could even get 10% of those people to ride motorcycles, that'd be pretty sweet. In places up north that turn into a frozen wasteland, I would advocate for trains. Trains are great. We just need more trains. I don't think I can advocate for people to completely get rid of their car, but honestly, I think it would be really great to see people buying just more base spec cars, having a motorcycle, and just being able to split their time between the two in a more efficient way. Not every single trip needs to have a 4-person passenger vehicle take you there. Maybe you have a short trip you need to get to the grocery store or the mailbox or some local business, or you just want to go out to go grab a pizza or something. And you could literally just jump on your motorcycle and all those miles add up and you'll see that you drastically reduce your time at the pump too. I think the greatest obstacle that we face as motorcyclists of getting more people involved with the sport and just using it as a utilitarian thing is that most people still think it's a crazy dangerous activity that only adrenaline junkies or rich dentists are doing, or your crazy broke uncle who's high on meth all the time. Most non-riders don't view motorcycling in America as a practical and reasonable form of transportation, which really sucks. So what can be done? Well, there's dozens of countries that show us that more people riding tends to be better for our society in general. I think in America, we are way too addicted to these large vehicles, large highways, and everybody driving 4-wheeled commuter vehicles. If we had more of a mixed use form of transport, if we had more trains, more bicycling lanes, more motorcycling, all kinds of different ways of getting people to get around, it would be better for everybody. But then of course, there wouldn't be as much of a profit incentives for automakers and tollway builders. I think we could also focus on education around motorcycling that shows that it isn't just a crazy hobby for adrenaline junkies and rich dentists, but a viable form of transport. And as I mentioned, I think if governments offered financial incentives for people to ride more, I think we could genuinely get more people on 2 wheels. Bikes have never been safer, have never been more cost effective, and the gear has never been better than before. But I do understand that some people still view motorcycling as way too dangerous, especially with the prevalence of distracted driving. And I get it. I've seen it in my time riding motorcycles, how things have gotten worse and worse and worse. Now look, as I said, in an ideal world, we would have the ability to walk, bike, take a motorcycle, take a train, or take a car to where we're trying to go, not just be limited to having a car and needing to spend a ton of money on it. And for the vast majority of the US, it maybe isn't a feasible solution. But look, in our car-obsessed landscape, there are still countless benefits to having a motorcycle as a form of transport that you add into your garage. But what do you guys think? Are we able to do this? Do you think that the public perception around motorcycling can be improved such that we get more people on two wheels as a form of viable transport that's cost effective rather than just adrenaline-seeking, rich, dumb guy behavior? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject. And if you're commuting on your Gixxer both ways uphill in the snow, let me know too. I love to hear from the diehard motorcyclists who literally ride year-round and only own motorcycles. As a shout out, producer Logan literally only has a bike. He is about that life. Why aren't you? Thanks so much for checking out today's video. I hope you had some fun dissecting this topic of urban transportation, using motorcycles as a viable form of transport. I'm obviously a big advocate here on YamiNoob. I want to see more people riding two-wheeled vehicles. I think it's a ton of fun. I think it's more cost-effective. And ultimately, I think it's better for society and the world. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
Boys, it's really sad that this video is now over, but you know what's not sad? Winning a free motorcycle, and that's what this Triumph Street Triple 765 RS is designed to do. You know, nobody gives away bikes like your sweet Papa Yam. Nobody's doing Triumph Street Triples and Panigales and all the latest and greatest stuff. If you want access to win, become a member on YamiNoob.co and don't miss your chance.